and moths, and grasshoppers. They can eat nearly half their body weight in insects in one night. So imagine if we ate half our body weight in food in one day. So that's a lot of insecticide, I guess, that they do for us. But in the winter, they do hibernate in the cave, and that's where the fungus is found. And it causes them to wake up and itch while they're hibernating. And if they wake up enough, sometimes just once or twice while they're hibernating, they use that stored body fat and they end up flying out of the cave looking for something to eat, and they end up starving to death. And we've lost about 95% of our bat population. So we only have a few hundred left. So the fungus doesn't bother humans, but it can stick to the bottom of your shoes in the mud that you're gonna walk. There's just a little bit of mud every once in a while, but it can stick to the bottom of your shoes. So these mats here have soap and water, and so if you walk through them after you leave the cave, it washes off the bottom of your shoes and reduces the risk of spreading that fungus with you elsewhere. Okay? Easy enough? Easy enough. Okay. Well, I like an interactive program. I'm going to ask you guys questions. There are no right or wrong answers, and it's okay to change your mind while you're walking and learning about the cave. We are going to learn a little bit about the cave, and we're going to try something a little different. You're going to learn about the cave with the idea that you guys own Mystery Cave, and you're going to think about what would you do with Mystery Cave if it was yours? So you could keep it open for tours, you could close it, you could mine it away for the limestone, you could do whatever you like. And it's okay to change your mind, it's okay to stick to your guns. So just want to hear what you guys have to say so we get everybody's perspective here. So we're going to start our walk down to the cave, and I want you to think about that question. What would you do with Mystery Cave if it belonged to you? And we're going to share when we get down to the cave. So are you guys ready? Okay. I'll get those when we get down there.
Is that just because it's too cold?
We worked this out with the Fish and Wildlife students. Summers.
Right.
Yeah. So the red lines on the sidewalks are different flood events, and you can see the dates on them. The cave floods regularly. It didn't flood this year, we're in a drought, but it did flood last year. And this picture right here is one of the old visitor centers. It was right over here on the grassy area. And the other picture is the entrance behind me, and it was 2 different floods in the same year, 1 month after another in 2000. This is the South Branch Root River. She asked what the name of the river was, and this is the South Branch of the Root River. So speaking of rivers and floods, there was, back in 1942, there was a really big flood. And this was before the state bought the cave. And the visitor center at the time, was out there, just right on the grass on the other side of the river here. And there was so much water, it picked up their visitor center, and it washed it downstream, and it crashed into the bridge at the end of the driveway where you guys came in today. And so their souvenirs and cash, everything got washed downstream. And back then they only had wood doors on the front here. And the flood debris pushed the doors open, and it coated the cave in feet of mud and debris. And so their whole business was wiped out within, just a few days. So pretty bad. So when the state bought the cave in 1988, one of the many things they did was put these flood doors on here. It allows water to seep in, but it keeps all that debris out. So for those of you who came late, we're looking at the cave with the perspective that you own Mystery Cave, and what would you do with the cave if it belonged to you. So these are some of the things as good landowners that you need to know about when it comes to managing the cave. So we're going to go in now, and I'll collect your tickets at the door here. I saw the light go on, and saw another group. So come on in, and I'll take your tickets. So beyond these doors is Mystery Cave, and it's a completely different environment. It's cold, it's wet, it's dark. So take care when you're walking. Pay attention to where you're stepping so you don't go off the trail and get yourself in some trouble. There's places, if you're taller than me, that you're going to have to duck. And because it's wet, there's some slippery places depending on the shoes that you have. And in those places there are handrails, so I'd encourage you to hold on to those. But that's the only place in the cave that we ask you to touch. Touching the cave walls, putting your feet up on the rocks, it damages the cave, and we want it to look nice for everybody that comes after us, right? Easy enough? I know it's hard, not touching is hard, but we can do this. So you ready? Come on in, you guys.
Yes. I heard you in there.
Okay. So my group, if you can follow my voice over to this side here.
It's the last time you see the caves and I should have looked at all of it. Wasn't that fun?
Maybe a vampire come down and suck it.
What was the
Come on in, you guys, a little bit more. We'll let this other group go
Why was
out.
that water in the pond?
Here's the water. What was that called?
The river of doom.
No,
It's, yeah,
Yeah.
till like
Oh, what
after
of the
1
park they
o'clock,
said
1:30,
the
it's
river
all
of
sold
doom.
out now. Lots of people walking in, you know, last
So
minute.
people are booking tomorrow.
Not today, yesterday it
That's
was
the
sold
river
out.
of doom. That's where shield rivers.
There are some caves that were mostly first come, first served, and I think that's something that people are used to. But then people are asking for the reservation system because they come down from the cities, or, they want to
Right.
make sure that they have
It's not,
something.
it's kind of out of the way.
Yeah, you drive 2 hours and find out it's sold out, that's pretty disappointing, so I don't know how you weigh that, balance that, but it seems to be working. So anyway, Mystery Cave was discovered in February of 1947 by a man named Joe Petty. He was a guide in Old Mystery Cave, which is just upstream from here. He was walking along the frozen South Branch Root River out front here when he saw some steam coming out of a crack in the hillside there. And for a caver, that's a sign that there's a cave below, or that there may be a cave below. So he ran home, he got some digging tools, dug down into the crevice, very close to where we came in today, got into Mystery Cave, and they had the cave open for tours by July of that same year. So very quickly. So caves aren't flat. There's hills and valleys that you have to negotiate or build trails or lower those hills so people can walk on them. So how are your eyes?
Adjusting.
Adjusting? Okay, good. I'm kind of trying to make sure that you guys adjust to those. So we're going to walk to our first stop. And as you walk, look around, make sure you look down through the grates, here the bridges, you'll see the natural floor of the cave. You can imagine Joe exploring the cave for the first time, or thinking about what it would take to bring visitors in the cave if you wanted to do that with your cave. But when we get to the first room, we're gonna talk a little bit about why Mystery Cave is here and the rocks. So let me turn the lights on. Need glasses for that. And this can be one of those slippery areas, but there's a handrail over here on the right. Alright, so I know I asked you guys to please not touch the cave, but we have one exception, and it's right here by the light switch. There's a piece of calcite that is covering the limestone, and it's the same as what you would see right here on this rock here. So this is from the cave, although it's out of context, so this is okay to touch if you want to see what the rest of the cave feels like, so it's right here. No, they only, it wasn't, the big group to explore the cave didn't happen until the 1960s. So in order for there to be a cave, you need the right kind of rock. And the rock that you're looking at here, this is called the Dubuque limestone. And limestone deposits where there are oceans. And it's kind of crazy because Minnesota is nowhere near an ocean, right? So we have to go back to the Ordovician period, which was about 450 million years before present. During that time, Minnesota was located closer to the equator, and Minnesota was covered by a sea at that time. And in that sea, there were animals, there were crinoids, cephalopods, coral reefs. And when those animals would die, their shells would sink to the bottom of the sea and compact with other sediments, creating sedimentary rock like sandstone, shale, and limestone. And the limestone's easy to identify once you get an eye for it. If you look at the walls here, you're going to see this thicker, denser piece of rock. This is the Dubuque limestone. So over here, same thing here over on this side. Are you seeing that? We're going to make geologists out of you before you leave here. So this is the limestone. Now this deposited during a calmer period in our Earth's history. In between that, there were more turbulent times when floodwaters deposited mud on top of that developing limestone, creating the intermittent shale layers. And those are, again, easy to identify once you get an eye for it. So if you look at the limestone, you'll see the shale layers in between. So there's the limestone and there's the shale. So over here, same thing. There's the limestone, the shale, limestone, shale. Are you guys seeing that? There you go. See, you're a geologist now. So the cave itself began to develop between 500,000 to 1 million years ago. When the South Branch River floods, water rises from the lower levels, and the water's slightly acidic, and it dissolves away the limestone. And you repeat that process over and over again, and eventually you're going to have a cave. Now, I mentioned to some folks already that the Mystery Cave is the longest cave in the state. There are over 400 caves in southeast Minnesota, and we, the DNR, we manage about 10 of them. This is the only cave that's open for public tours. But very close to here is a place called Cherry Grove. It's a scientific and natural area. It's only about 5 miles. It's a place that you can visit. And it has Goliath Cave, this big, massive sinkhole entrance that you can see. And the state bought the cave, bought that scientific and natural area, that property, in 1990. But before that, the owners applied for a permit to quarry that. Limestone is used for building. You drove on the limestone gravel roads to come here today, so there's all sorts of uses for it. And it's certainly within your right, if you own that cave, you can quarry it to make money, pay your mortgage and things like that. But they were approached by the state and asked, hey, instead of quarrying it, would you mind just selling it? And they wanted to sell it instead. So it was acquired again in 1990. And it's a smaller cave. It's only about 2 miles long, but it looks very much like this cave here. So again, as cave owners, it's something to think about. You have the opportunity to quarry it, or if you want to preserve it. Again, that's something to think about as we walk through the cave here. Now, we know that we need water to make a cave. Water is also responsible for these secondary formations that you guys are looking at back there on the walls there. So we're going to walk to our next stop and learn a little bit about how secondary formations develop. And as you walk, again, look through the grades, look through the bridges. excited to be here?
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Oh, okay. People aren't seeing them flying around. They are starting to come into the cave now. There's a second entrance, just a couple miles from here where most of the bats roost. But if I see one, I'll show them.
That's about It's like that. It's very loud.
Okay. They squeak, they do. So, along with bats in the cave, we have these secondary formations. So, when plants die and decay, they give off CO2, carbon dioxide. And when that mixes with water, it becomes a carbonic acid. And as the acid water seeps down through the cracks in the limestone, that dissolves away the limestone. So that, along with flooding, contributes to cave-to-cave acid development. That carbonic acid, have any of you guys drank a soda today or recently? Pop, we say pop. Yeah, carbonic acid makes the fizz in your soda and dissolves the limestone too. So think about it. But when that acid water reaches the cave's air, the CO2 degasses. So think of that, opening that can of pop and you hear the CO2 fizzing out. Same thing. But what's left in that water is a mineral called calcite. Calcite's in our bones and teeth. Think back to the Ordovician Sea and those shells. Well, for every way that calcite-laden water deposits, it drips down, it flows down the wall, it might cool up. For every way it deposits, you get different types of formations. So for instance, look up on the ceiling here, I'll show you that right there. You see those little tubes? Those are called soda straws. Little ring of calcite deposits on the ceiling, and then another ring, and another ring, and eventually they can get pretty long if left alone. But oftentimes they plug, and it forces the calcite to deposit on the outside and get thicker and thicker, and that's when you get stalactites. You guys know the opposite of stalactite, right? Stalagmite, yeah, you knew that, right? And when, right here, when a stalactite and stalagmite grow together, like this one or this one, what do we call them? That's what's called. Yes. When it flows down the wall, like it's doing here, it's called flowstone. And back here behind you, again, it starts to hang down. These are called draperies or curtains. Scientists, right? They're not very but often it all starts with calcite. Do you guys want to do just a little exploring on your own? You can. You can walk down those stairs and follow the trail around. Come through this pillar here and maybe down on the side. Remember, you guys are always looking It stays 48 degrees all year round. Nice and cool and sunny, and sort of the rock is cooled down to the average outside temperature. I was asked if it freezes in here, we see ice in here. The cave is 48 degrees all year round. It's because the rock is cooled down to the average annual outside temperature. So 48 degrees Fahrenheit outside is the average outside temperature. So we're going to continue our walk. And as you walk, think about this question. What if you could look through a window to the past, what would you like to see? So think about that, and I'll ask you guys to share when we get to the next room, okay? Okay. Might have to scoot down just a little bit more because I was probably left in the passage there. We got everybody? Plus the people who aren't here can say it. There we go. Okay. So did you guys think of an answer to that question? If you could look through a window to the past, what would you like to see?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. I'm with you there. Is everybody on the same page, or is there something else you'd like to see? Megafauna, okay.
You see the water and how it actually erodes it.
That would be interesting to see.
Just to see the whole process.
The time, yeah, the time lapse thing, yeah, that would be interesting to see too.
I can see Jurassic Park over there. So.
Jurassic Park. That'd be interesting. I don't know what a good idea that would be, but I'd love to see that going through a window. You ask a bunch of school kids who come in here, and of course they all say dinosaurs too. Who would want to see dinosaurs? But we do have something that lived long before dinosaurs in this room. Think back to the Ordovician age and those animals that lived in that shallow sea, the crinoids, cephalopods, the coral reefs. When they died and their shells sank to the bottom of the shallow sea, some of those shells were preserved as fossils. And Mystery Cave preserves a lot of fossils in the rock. And there's one up on the ceiling, pointed out, and it's right here. Are you seeing it? This is a cephalopod. Now the modern day cephalopods are soft-bodied squid and octopus. Maybe if I shine my flashlight on there, I don't know if that's any better. But it's right there. This cephalopod is extinct now. It lived during the Ordovician age. And this is kind of a small one. They grew up to 15 feet long. And if you look at their bodies, they're little chambers. And as the body got bigger and grew out of the chamber, it would develop more calcite. And each chamber got bigger and bigger to support the animal as it got bigger. And in a way, they remind me of a giant like a giant ice cream cone, a pointy cone. Their head, where their head would be, is where the top of the where the ice cream scoops would be. And if you put sprinkles on the ice cream, that's where the antennas type would be. They had lots, about 15 or 20 of those up there. And they were the top predator in the shallow sea at the time, too, so formidable predators. But it's neat to be able to see something that lived long ago. So caves give us that window to the past, and they also demonstrate the immensity of time, too. So we see a lot of these fossils throughout the cave. It's pretty exciting to see. So not only do we have evidence of animals that lived long ago, we also have animals that live in the cave now. So we're going to continue our walk down to our next room and think about who might live in Mystery Cave. And what would you eat if you lived here? Have you seen any food? How would you travel around in the dark? Normally there are no lights in the cave. So think about that as we walk to our next stop.
What caused the big bubbles in the ceiling?
What caused the big holes here?
Yeah.
These are called domes. And if you turn around and look at the wall here, I'll point it out. Let's see, make sure I got the word right. Do you see the black line right here? There's a black line and everything above it is lighter. This is the last year's flood level. This is how high the water got. So it does flood. But on occasion, when it does flood to the ceiling, water always finds the path of least resistance. And the water's going to have gravels and other sediments in it. So the water's going to find a joint or crack, the weak spot, and it's going to start to dissolve and work on that. And you repeat that process over and over again. Eventually those crackled holes get bigger and bigger, and that's how more cave and more cave passages developed. So the same thing is happening over here. If you look here, the flood water is dissolving in this joint right here and making that passage taller. So come back in 1,000 years and you won't have to duck when we walk through there. Okay? Good question. Save the date. So you look down. So if you have a flashlight on your phone, might want to turn it on. I'm going to pass this around. There's pictures on both sides. Since you're here first, we can start with you guys. You can pass it around. If you have a flashlight on your phone, I'm passing a couple pictures around. It'd be easier to see.
Are there ever any collapses or cave-ins at all here?
There was one, and it was only because of a failure in a drain system that was put in like in the 1940s. It's in a part of the cave that we're working on to open back up. We have engineers working on it right now. If we don't go in today, we'll pass by it. So yeah, we're passing a picture around. If you have a flashlight on your phone, you might be able to see them better. There's a picture on the side. So who do you think lives in Mystery Cave?
Mites?
Mites. Oh, someone recognized the mites. Yeah. Anything else? Bats, of course, right? The bats. Yeah.
Crickets, maybe?
Crickets, yes.
Spiders.
Spiders. Lots of bugs. So we do have, bats. We have rodents like mice, raccoons that come into the cave. They're a really important part of the ecosystem. But the majority of the animals that live in Mystery Cave are invertebrates, animals with no backbones, like spiders, millipedes, crickets, all those really cool animals. Everybody gets excited over bats, and I like bats too, but give me a spider, I'll be there any day, and I'm happy. Right? Most of these invertebrates are related to their cousins on the surface, but they were pressured underground over 10,000 years ago, and they have had to adapt to live in this cold, wet, dark environment. And they have several adaptations, but there's a few that are really interesting. One is their ability to travel around in the dark. Most cave-adapted animals like spiders, if you want, you can come up here. There's lots around here. Spiders, for instance, have these long, graceful legs. That's why I like spiders, right? What woman doesn't want long, graceful legs? Crickets have super long antennae, and they use those long appendages to find their way around in the cave. Another adaptation is their skin. So if you look, humans come in a wonderful variety of skin colors. We're all different colors, and we have that skin color pigment to protect us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. But in a cave, there's no sun, so pigment isn't needed anymore. So most cave-adapted animals, like these springtails, have either very white skin, or like this mite, this akari here, has clear skin. You can see through its skin and see its organs inside. Isn't that cool? Silence, huh? Imagine if we were like that. Wouldn't that be interesting? Silence. The other adaptation are their eyes, or rather their lack of eyes. In a cave, there's no sun again, there's no light, so eyes aren't needed anymore. So most cave-adapted animals have either very reduced eyes or no eyes at all. But where their eyes used to be, for some of these animals, their eye sockets, they now use that area to store fat from food. So still a useful part of their body. So what do you think they eat?
You need light for this one.
Do. But sometimes, well, we have light in here, and you might see the green, it's called lantern flora from the lights. That provides an unnatural food source. But when it floods, the organic matter that gets washed into the cave provides a food source. Bats are super important, and so are rodents. They deposit guano in the cave. Do you know what guano is? Guano, okay, scientific word for food, guano, but bacteria grows on the guano, and that provides a food source, so it's super important. But they're like humans, they eat other animals, so they prey upon each other too, so the food chain is super important. But do you guys want to see what it's like to be a cave-adapted animal?
Yes.
That means turning off the light, so are you going to be okay standing right there? It's going to get really dark here. So I'm going to turn off the lights. Ready? that enough for you? Okay. What'd you think? So the animals are like the canary in the coal mine. The rock is like Swiss cheese, limestone is, and all the human activity that happens on the surface, fertilizers, nitrates, septic systems, everything, it doesn't get filtered and it comes very quickly down into the cave. So as responsible cave owners, this is something that you need to know about if you manage mystery cave or own mystery cave trail. So we are going to walk on to our next stop, and we're gonna talk a little bit about more about Mystery Cave, and I'm going to ask you guys to share your thoughts, what you would do with Mystery Cave when we get to our next stop. So you ready? We're going to go down these stairs here. You look. Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't see anything.
they had to lower hills to dig those mounds of mud down. And they took that fill and dumped it into the crevices. All those bridges that we've been walking over today, those were all filled from wall to wall so people could walk over them. And then it also had a layer of pea gravel. At the time also, there was just a string of light bulbs, bare light bulbs down the center here. And on this wall, if you look down, I'm going to shine my flashlight down there. You'll see the light switches on the wall, way up there on the left, in there. That's how high they filled this room. This whole pool was filled up. The only part of this beautiful formation you can see is, I'm going to shine my red light all the way down. So it was filled all the way across. You can see the line of and the only part of this formation you can see was everything above my red line here. Wayne Frank, he does some electrical work for us, and he was a guide in the cave as a teenager, and he told me recently that as a guide, they had to use sticks to turn those light switches on, because if you touch them, you get shocked. And because you could get close to this formation, the guides would take their flashlight and tap on it. It made a nice sound, but you could see what happened to those, how those broke. So the pools, the animals that live in the cave often live in these shallow areas of this pool, these pools here. So the whole ecosystem was altered when they developed the cave for tours. So when the state bought it, they closed this entrance down for 5 years and held tours out of the second entrance so that they can restore this. They pulled all the fill out, put the bridges in, put the nice lighting in. It was quite an effort to do this, but it helped restore the airflow and the water flow. So again, as cave owners, we're getting close to our last stop. This is something for you to consider. We are going to move along to our very last stop, and this is where I'm going to ask you guys to participate. If you are a cave owner, if you own Mystery Cave, what would you do? I'd like to know what you think. Did you change your mind once you've learned a little bit more? Would you do something completely different? So let's walk to our last stop, and then we'll have a short discussion and talk about that. This was a passage that was really altered. If you look on the left side, on this left side, there's a pool, a tiny pool there, and the springtails that you saw, this is their home. They're tiny, they're hard to see, they're smaller than a grain of rice. But if you also look on the left side, you can see where that pool would have extended to the right side if they hadn't cut through it. So something just to watch for. That's the way to the rest of the cave. I'll shine my light down there. If you came back and did a wild cave tour, we'd take you down there. We give you helmets and knee pads and coveralls and everything you need. We'll take you down there a couple miles, you can crawl around. It's a lot of fun. We'll bring you back. If you want to go to the other entrance from here, it takes me about 5 hours, or you can drive around too. Short ride around. At the other entrance is where we have the geology and lantern tours. It's rugged, there's no electricity, there's no paved trails. So it looks a lot different, so it's another reason to come back. So what would you guys do if Mystery Cave was yours?
Keep it as public land.
You would?
Yep.
Okay. Let people still see it? Yep. Okay. That's a good one. Anybody else have something different? Did anybody change their mind on something? So everybody wants to keep it open to the public?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Even after all what you know about managing a cave, what it takes to? I've had people say, no way, I don't want it, so it's too much.
Sell it to the state.
I'm sorry?
Sell it to the state.
You'd sell it to the state, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I
I
think,
wouldn't want to run it privately.
I'm sorry?
I would not want to run it privately, no.
Oh, okay. Did anybody have an idea earlier on and then change their mind?
No.
No? Oh, okay, awesome. Well, I hope that as well, you know, it's not so far-fetched because if you do live here in Minnesota, this is your cave. You know, this is public land and this does belong to you, so it isn't, like I said, not so far-fetched. So we learned a lot about the cave and how it's developed and the animals that live here. But the other thing about this cave is that it's just beautiful. I like to come here sometimes and I'll stand right there and I'll shut off the lights and I just kind of decompress and relax. But it is beautiful. And recently I found this poem. It's by a Turkish playwright named Mehmet Ildan. And he wrote, "Do not always run away from the darkness. Remember the beautiful lakes which are hidden inside the dark caves. In the least expected places there exist the most beautiful treasures." And it is right here. Go see it if you like. Well, you know, back in the day...
Is it salty?
It's just regular, it tastes like regular water.
Really?
But back in the day, before the state bought it, in that corner there used to be a post with cups on it, and the guides would encourage his guests to grab a cup and dip it in the water and enjoy a refreshing glass of water, and then put the cup back for the next person to use. But the rock is like Swiss cheese here. This is called karst, so it's a very holy land, and I mean that literally, lots of springs, caves. So all the human activity, the pollutants that we put on the land doesn't filter like it would in areas where there's a lot of sediment to filter it out. So all the pollutants come very quickly into the cave. This cave has a river that flows in the lower level. It flows 2 miles underground and it comes back to the surface at 7 Springs, which is a wildlife management area. So these caves act as conduits for our groundwater and everything else too. So the nitrates that are in this water are above what the EPA recommends drinking, and probably 80–85%, I just read this article, of the wells, the shallow wells here in Fillmore County are no good to drink out of, and many of them, as they dug lower, the nitrates are still very high here in this area. So, no, I wouldn't recommend. It's pretty, but I wouldn't drink it. Long answer. Does anybody have any other questions?
The private cave owners that find caves on their property, are they beholden to state rules and the DNR if they want to open them up and bring guests down in them? And because there are private caves, I assume.
Yes, like the state manages about 10 of the caves and of the 400 caves here, and the rest are private. Niagara Cave is a cave that's owned by the Bishop family, and they do a great job of managing it. But no, it's their property. They can do whatever they want. Like I said, they can quarry it away if they wanted to. So.
Are most of the 400 caves in this region?
I'm sorry?
Are most of the 400 caves in Minnesota in this southeast region?
Yes, you'll find them all in this region here. This is where the karst, where the limestone is. Turn that light off back there. Do you have any other questions? You guys are good.
So did Lake Agassiz reach this area or no?
Not this far south.
This far
Closer to Ely, the northern Minnesota is where the Lake Agassiz, the glacial lake is what he's asking about, the glacial lake. Yes.
Okay.
Not this far. This is called the driftless area. This is an area where the last glaciation missed. So this corner of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois, the glaciers went around here. Why it's called the driftless, it's why we have the caves, and because it's not covered by the drift that glaciers push.
Are sinkholes a clue that there's a cave underneath?
It is. Not all sinkholes have caves, but a lot of sinkholes do end up having caves eventually, yes. That first room that we stopped in where we learned about the limestone, if you looked at the ceiling, you may have saw roots coming in from the ceiling. So from the ceiling out is only about 40 feet to the surface. That one day will probably be a sinkhole, not in our lifetime, but several thousand years. So Fillmore County is the land of 10,000 sinkholes. It is. I moved here from California and I got my Jeep registered and I got this license plate that says land of 10,000 lakes. And I'm looking around, so where are the 10,000 lakes? There's no natural lakes here in Fillmore County.
Because the glacier missed them.
Well, yeah, it's because the Swiss cheese rock that the limestone is, it doesn't hold surface
Can I
water.
throw your own question back onto you without getting it politicized? Have you thought of any better use or way that we could, and I don't mean it, exploit them for just finance, but involving more people to understand what's been happening and what's going to happen?
To what's going to happen?
Well, I'm just saying, 4 caves, the future of them, what would be a happy medium or something improving in what we have?
What would be a happy medium? Hopefully people, when the state bought the cave, actually my husband was part of that, so I'm very familiar with it. They worked a lot with the landowners, with the communities here to try to resolve any issues, traffic, things like that, and to come to some mutual agreements and everybody was eventually on board when it came to purchasing the cave, with the understanding that this was going to be used for education. Am I going in the direction that you're asking?
Yeah, no, I'm obviously from Great Britain, where everything we have is national trust.
Okay.
Private landowners only own what they walk on. They won't own things like this, and we open them up to the public, and it's all free. Or
Okay.
for a national park pass, everyone's allowed in. And I think, we have to, and maybe that's wrong, because we're now getting wild camping happening, and, we're not managing it with enough discipline possibly. But I'm just wondering if there's any future changes that we could make, on environmental issues, educational issues, state functioning, and financial issues. Where does it go without costing everybody too much?
Oh, yeah. Does anybody have any ideas on that?
Raise taxes.
Raise taxes. Yeah.
We were at Carlsbad this year, and one of the main parts of the cave used to be open to the public, like just open for walking through on your own. But they closed part of it several years ago because it was getting too much damage. So now you've got to make a reservation for that part, and there's another part that's open where you could just do a self-guided tour, but they closed off like the most spectacular part of the cave, and you can't be in there without a guide because of the damage people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't let people in. Well, we have recreational caving, but it's through a trustee system that we have. We don't have the open access to everybody here because of things like that too. But what would we do without public lands? You know, without public lands here in the U.S., there would be so many no trespassing signs, or you have to ask permission to go for backpacking. I heard in Europe you can just jump over somebody's fence and keep walking.
No, only in Scotland. Scotland is one of the few countries in the world which has no trespass law. England, everyone else, you have to use what's called rights of way. So in Scotland you can go anywhere as long as you don't walk through someone's field damaging their crop or scare their livestock. So that's open to interpretation. But it doesn't allow us to access the hills, the lochs, the caves, whatever. But again, there's the danger of all the militia will come up again. In the nicest way.
Well, that's really good. I just think, I am just so thankful that we have public lands and that the majority of people are supportive of it. I know there is some political pushback on some public lands, especially out west where I'm from, because there is so much public land that it comes to having discussions like this where people try to understand each other, whether you agree with them or not. If you don't start talking about things, then we'll never get anywhere. Right? So thank you. I think we took way more than your time. So I just wanted to thank you guys for your time. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And if you'll follow me, I'll take you out of the cave. Nice talking to you guys.
Thank you. So do you have folks that come down here in the winter time to check in on it, or
That do what?
come check in on the cave during the winter months, or no?
No, we close the cave for the bats and we don't go in the cave
Till
until May when
May, okay. So on the other side, you pointed to the passage that keeps going.
Yes.
What does it take to go there? Is it just reservations, or do you have to be?
Well, we have a wild cave tour that you can join,
Okay.
and those are in the summertime on Saturdays.
Do you need a license to do a wild caving, or what is?
No, it's a tour like this that you sign up for.
Okay. Okay.
There's also a caving club, the Minnesota Speleological Survey, and recreational caving is this is public land, so you can recreate just like you hike on the surface. If someone wants to do that, we introduce them to someone from the Minnesota club,
Okay.
and they'll take them caving. And eventually, if you learn to travel through the cave safely without damaging it, you can become a trustee and check out a key. We have a group in the other entrance this weekend right now
Oh, okay.
doing that. So it's
So-
just a trustee, getting to know.
Okay. So is exploration all done, or are you still finding new passages and expanding the cave?
We are still expanding the cave.
Really?
Surveying it, yes.
Right side up here. Pass on the group.
Hello. So what's the mystery about the mystery cave?
Oh, that's a good question. Here, I'll answer that up here so everybody can hear. I was asked a really good question. What's the big mystery about Mystery Cave? Old Mystery, which is right next door here, when Clarence Prohaska, he was one of the first people working in the cave, they were digging and trying to make passage through make a trail through the cave, and this was, back in, late 1930s with those types of tools. And their wheelbarrow tipped over full of mud, and he goes to the guys he's working with and he says, we should call this Mystery Cave. And they said, why? Well, because it's a mystery to me why anyone would want to work here. And so that's how the name started. Wow. Okay. So anyway, we're going to go out this door, and when that door closes, we'll go out the front door. So just want to thank you guys again for your time, and if you could remember to walk through those foot mats for the bats, that'd be awesome.
Thanks for the tour.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
So yeah, here's some of the red lines here.